prepare, respond, serve. This is 5 Stone. The contents of this podcast are the personal opinions and views of 5 Stone and our affiliates. This is not a recommendation for medical practice or a guide for decision making or even to take place for your own personal judgment. We recommend that you always seek out in-person professional training and always follow your established policies and procedures. Now, with that said, let's get after it.
Whether you're a cop, fireman, paramedic, EMT, whatever, we all carry a toolbox. We all have a toolbox, right?
That's right.
Whether if you're a paramedic or EMT, it's everything in your ambulance, everything in your med kit. If you're an officer, it's everything in your duty belt. Fireman, it's everything on them compartments on that engine or ladder, right?
You're trying. A teacher, everything in your classroom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So listen, you got to know how to use everything in your toolbox. Because when it comes time to use an item in your toolbox, the best time to learn it is not when a life is on the line. Like when you need to use it, that's not the time
Try to figure out how to use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
So that's what I want to talk about today.
All right.
So our motto is, prepare, respond, and serve.
Right.
And you can't respond or serve appropriately anyway if you're not prepared.
That's right.
And I don't mean you can be prepared physically, like you can be in shape. You can have all the items that you would need, but you got to know how to use them.
Mentally, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Strategically,
yeah.
Mentally.
You got to know when to use them and how to use them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So several instances, and it's not just one, it's been several that I've seen in my career where I've heard paramedics say that they're not going to use a certain medication or a certain item on their ambulance because they don't know anything about it. How ridiculous is that?
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
What if you went to see a doctor?
Don't mention any specific locations or anything.
Going to.
But give us I've got examples over my career, but give us some.
So, just like I said, there are some medications that's in our med kit that's not used very often, but sometimes they're needed.
Right.
And I have heard leaders at these organizations say, "Well, I ain't gonna touch that stuff. I don't know nothing about it." So what?
What the heck?
This sounds crazy, but how about you learn it? Do some research.
Let's think way outside the box here.
It sounds completely insane.
Yeah, let's learn what you're doing.
But maybe learn your job.
Yeah, that's be a good start.
It would be a real good start.
Yeah.
So, like I was going to say, what if you went to the doctor about an issue you were having?
Yeah.
And then I was like, we could use this, but I don't know about it. So,
we'll just go this other one.
Yeah. It's just, it's insane.
Right. And it's okay to not know everything, but once you realize that weakness, it's your duty and your responsibility to figure it out. You don't just intentionally not know something that you're responsible to know.
The moment that comment came out of that person's mouth, like, I'm not going to use it because I don't know anything about it. He should have immediately, like, oh man, that's, well, I guess I need to learn that product or that item, that drug, whatever.
Yeah.
Just like we was talking a minute ago, how many police officers are carrying a tourniquet on their duty belt that maybe nobody's ever shown them how to use it?
Right. Or it was a long time ago, and they need a refresher.
Exactly.
Don't.
Under stress, it's hard to figure something out.
Right.
Just like those high acuity or like the critical things that we rarely use.
Right.
For instance, RSIing, rapid sequence intubation.
Right.
That's where we paralyze a patient, sedate them, paralyze them, and secure their airway.
Right, and that's the whole purpose of that is to get an airway secured.
Yeah. So basically, very basic, pathophysiology. Where a disease process is going.
Right.
If somebody's got an obvious head injury, where they're going.
Right.
They're like, oh, this pretty evident they got a head bleed.
Right.
They're going to be unconscious and projectile vomiting within the next 20, 30 minutes.
Aspirate that into the lungs.
Exactly. So what do? You stay ahead of the 8 ball. Yeah. You put them down, and you secure that airway before it ever gets that bad.
Right.
Right? So, but you don't get to use that skill that frequently.
Right.
So I will admit that every time I do it, it can be stressful.
Yeah.
Luckily, I've had, good teachers show shortcuts, how to calculate drug dosages on the fly in stressful situations. But in our toolbox at work, we've got several medications that we can kind of pick and choose from, and some are preferred over others.
Yeah.
But one of them is in powder form. You have to reconstitute it, throw some saline in that bottle. And a close friend of mine experienced this on his first RSI, and he struggled with it, because he strives to be the best, and he's a really good paramedic,
right?
Super good. He's a new critical care medic, but he's very, very good at it. But first RSI, he didn't know that paralytic was in powder form. So he learned a pretty hard lesson that night. Yeah. But I guarantee you, he'll never.
Right. We've both been there. We've shared this on previous podcasts. You show up on the scene like you had that one with the baby pediatric, and you're just like, I was never unprepared for that again.
We've all been there.
Yeah, I had it with my first RSI on that wreck. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to draw up medicine, shaking so bad I can't do it, and I was like, I got to figure out these dosages. I was never that way again.
Yeah. And basically, I'm not like trying to preach or put anybody down. I'm trying to basically help you to prevent you from
being in that same boat.
Being in those scenarios that we have experienced.
Because we struggle and we suffer through that, but the patient or whoever we're responding for, and that's why I brought up, you said firemen, EMS, law enforcement, but teachers. So important because, it's one thing that we try to bring across is being prepared for active aggressor and active shooter situations in schools. Is what's in your toolbox for that situation. Bus driver, what's in your first aid kit in case there was a wreck. You've got how many kids fit on a school bus? I don't even know, 60 or something. You know what I'm saying? How many are you prepared to take care of a mass casualty if you're that person?
Yeah.
Like, no.
I don't know if I mentioned the run on this podcast before, but in Louisville we had a head-on collision that me and my partner rolled up on, and both cars caught on fire. And fire department was knocked out, but the closest station was like 3 or 4 miles away.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to, I wouldn't say I didn't know how to use a fire extinguisher, but under stress, trying to figure out how to unlatch that fire extinguisher in that ambulance.
Yeah.
And then, get into the fire and doing what you got to do.
Yeah.
Like I had to use 2 fire extinguishers on this run. One of them was zip tied in the ambulance.
Jeez.
They're supposed to be secured, by law.
Well, they were secured.
But they have those ratchet systems that you,
you just flip the buckle and get it out. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, evidently it broke. What'd they do? They wrapped a couple zip ties around it, secured to the.
Oh my gosh.
So under stress, somebody trapped in a car with the car on fire. I run to get my second fire extinguisher, and it was zip tied in. I'm like, oh my god. So you know what? You got to know your unit.
Yeah,
you got to know the truck that you're in. Yeah. Is one of your fire extinguishers zip tied? I guess it's okay to be, but know how to access that before you absolutely need it.
Yeah. Yeah, when you do something under stress, it's always worse. And if you don't practice under stress and put yourself in those situations intentionally, you're never going to know how you're going to respond. Yeah. Just like shooting. You go out to the range and you can sit there and shoot. You can just pull up, get a good isosceles triangle, and just squeeze off every single round, hit that bullseye every single time. In a gunfight, you're not going to shoot that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You got to put yourself under stress. So we teach people and we put them through sprints and runs and obstacles and all this stuff to induce the stress and then try to make them function. Same way with the edge weapons training. We'll do the same thing that way.
Yep. Or clearing malfunctions in a weapon.
I can teach you to do some techniques and learn how to defend against a knife, and you can be like, okay, I got this. But then as soon as you get under stress and you've got nothing but gross motor skills left, are you going to be able to do it? Exactly. So you may have it in your toolbox, but if you don't practice under stress how to use those things in your toolbox, you're worthless.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just the truth of it.
Yeah. And
I remember we had a couple instances in some hospitals where I've worked at, and it was so bad. Oh, it was so bad. We had a lady come in. She was in an arrhythmia, which is for those listening, that's not medical. Just she's having some different heart rhythms going on, and there's a certain way you can treat these rhythms. And she was in one that we could have shocked her, and which we call, a synchronized cardioversion, where you dial the voltage down, you give her just a little bit of juice, and it kind of resets the heart. But with that, there's a certain whole system you go through, and you get everything timed up with the monitor, and you give them some medicine to kind of relax them. You do this thing the right way.
Yep.
And we had a doctor and nurse that was not prepared for this at all. And this lady came in this rhythm, totally alert, oriented, talking with us. And I was like, hey, here's what we got. I hear the doctor come in and go, yep, shocker, and walks out the door. I don't know if that doctor meant do this way.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I hear the defibrillator just charging up, just and I'm like, what is going on? Come around the corner, boom, full juice.
God.
No medication, nothing to sedate, nothing. And I'm like, what is going on? And it's like, it didn't work. Do it again. And I just
doing it wrong.
Get out. I kicked everybody out of the room, and I've had doctors, legit doctors, look at me and go, in the middle of traumas, what do I do?
Yeah.
And what are you talking about? What do I do? Well, how about you assess the person first? Let's start here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I've had doctors who sit there and who know better and are trained. A little lead come off the chest, and it looks like they're in what we call a systole, or for the TV people, just a flat line.
Yeah.
You don't shock that. And it's like, oh, hey, they're in a systole flat line. Let's shock it. And meanwhile, the person's talking. It's like, hey, what's for supper? It's like they're dead. Shock them. It's like, oh my gosh, they're not dead. They're talking, and you don't shock that rhythm. So let's just stop. And then all of a sudden you hear that monitor. Boo.
Yeah, that's a whole nother lesson. Treat your patient, not your monitor.
Yes. It's like, oh my gosh. So it's when people get under stress.
Yeah.
What's in your toolbox? What's in your crash cart? Yeah, you got all this medicine, but when you're stressed out, can you use it?
So another crazy doctor story.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those rent-a-docs in a fairly busy ER.
Yeah.
And a dude come in with a pneumo, so he had a collapsed lung.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Chest tube, right? So the doctor that's going in, he goes in the room with him in the ER room, pulls up YouTube.
No.
I swear.
No.
I swear.
Oh.
I've got witnesses that can attest to this. Pulls up YouTube. Luckily, the nurses that were working there are smart and good at their job. They're like, hold up. Let's get somebody else down here. Stopped him. But yeah, he had to pull up YouTube to know how to put in a chest tube.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was not even in his toolbox then.
Evidently YouTube's in his toolbox.
Oh my gosh. That's scary.
So yeah, I mean, it happens to EMTs all the way up to doctors.
Yeah.
No matter your title, you can be unprepared.
Yep.
Just because, it's easy to say, well, I've got my paramedic license, so time to stop learning. I can just coast from here.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing you can do.
You can never stop learning everything that's out there. And the minute you think that you've got it figured out, I've worked with people like that.
Yep.
They just got this complex of like, well, I got this title, so I'm good. And that's the scariest people you could ever work with.
So one of our employees now, and I praise him all the time because of this. And they were in the middle of critical care class. We just graduated a bunch, like in March or April, something like that. Yeah. And every day on shift, you would find him out in the bay in a chair with a transport vent, and a set of practice lungs. All he did was learn how to use that vent. He just played with that vent for hours, cool, man. Yeah, so like he is solid on a vent. Mm-hmm. But you don't see that. You don't see your officers going over their weapons or their less than lethal, going over fighting techniques, or firemen, going in and playing with those tools that they don't use on a regular basis. Right. Same thing in EMS. If you don't know the medication that you could possibly use on an next run, if you don't know how to use it, you could kill somebody. Yeah. Or if you don't know the ventilator, that's huge. It's real big. You know, because when it comes time, to where it's just you and that ventilator, that's it. Right. And you've got like an hour and a half trip to Louisville or Nashville. Yep.
And just like that, the tourniquets, you can bleed to death in 3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, depending on where it's at.
Yeah.
can you put it on under stress? You know, whenever we would work with Aaron Stamper and Rick Puckett and B-Sog and all this and get put through these high-stress situations and blindfolded or in a dark room and, you know what I'm saying, you got gloves on. Can you get this gear out and can you do what you need to do under this extremely high stress?
Me and you's trained that way.
Yeah.
You know, all the like the disco lights and the loud music and clearing rooms with all this stuff playing, you know, and fog. Yeah. Basically just you flood all your senses. Yeah. And basically just learn the motions that you still have to use under stress.
Exactly. 100%.
And I think something that goes along with this is the ability to think outside the box or critical thinking in stressful situations. I know a lot of people don't consider that a tool, but it's a tool you have to have in these professions. Yeah. You know, not every traffic stop is exactly the same. You're not going to do the same thing on every you know, public encounter as an officer, every run as a paramedic, every fire as a fireman. They're never the same. So to think of having black and white answers for everything is just I don't know how else to put it, but it's a foolish way to think.
No, you're exactly right. People get so stuck up on policies and procedures and SOPs, and it's like it's got to be this way, and if it's not, I can't function outside that box.
Yeah.
You know,
it blows my mind the people that just have to have a black and white answer. Yeah. And none of that exists.
Because I think whenever you start thinking outside the box and you start doing that critical thinking skills, it avoids you getting tunnel vision.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Yeah. You know, when I was a federal officer with the Bureau of Prisons, we went down through a training in Glencoe, Georgia, and we were doing a combatives class. And I had a lot of, you know, hand-to-hand combat training up until this point. Yeah. But the training that I had was more, I don't know how to really word it, more over the top, more like in the threat immediately. It wasn't structured like pressure point control tactics, take this person down, cuff them, things like that.
Yeah.
They would put it through this training, and every time, it took me legit probably about 10 times to pass this one rotation, because they would have somebody pop out of a crowd with a blade and attack one of our officers. And I would run straight head forward towards this blade, right, to try to stop this guy. And then I would get flanked by somebody else. Yeah. You know, and it was just like, because through our training, it was more one-on-one. You know what I'm saying? But getting adapted over the situation of coming in from different areas is where...
It's easy to get blindsided.
Right. And so I think that's the problem, is like people think, you know, well, policy, you know, 427-A says, when I have this rhythm that is printed out in this book and it looks exactly like this, then I have to give this many milligrams of this medication exactly how it says. And it's like, well, this rhythm don't really look like that one. Holy crap, which one is it? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You got to have that critical thinking skills under stress. Yeah. And that's what's so hard to get, you know, without that exposure.
Yeah. Just like things in paramedic class, if you use it in a super critical patient, sometimes you can kill your patient. Yes. You know, like with an acidic patient, if you've got that whole, your CO2 should be 35 to 45. Mm-hmm. But what if your patient's breathing 35 times a minute and their CO2 is, you know, 16? Are you going to try to address that? Yeah. If you do, you're going to change their pH and kill them. Yeah. You know, a quick kill, clean kill. Yeah. And something I was just taught this year about, you know, we was talking about VTAC. If you give amiodarone, they've got a bifurcicular block, clean kill. Yeah.
There's
that's in your ACLS protocol.
Yeah. There's a lot out there. Yeah. And it's hard to swallow and it's hard to digest. And it comes time, I think, with training. Yeah. You know, and having a good training system, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's EMS, fire, whatever it is, having a good training curriculum set up so your guys can get experience with support. Like you said in a few podcasts ago, you were like, excuse me, you said, I go along with my guys on these runs and these new guys to help them, let them know, hey, you're doing this, but I got you. If you get stuck, I'm there for you. You know what I'm saying? That's what people need. Yeah. But what's in their toolbox has got to be accessed under stress. These teachers, they don't have anybody in that classroom training them, for example, for a mass casualty. Mm. You know what I'm saying? Like, who's going to train those people? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to push that message out, because if you're a teacher in a school system and all of a sudden it goes off on the alarms, active shooter, and everything falls dead silent because that active shooter went into
Yeah.
the front office and eliminated those people, and now he's on free roam through the school system.
Yeah.
What do they do?
Let's talk about something that probably happens more often than active shooters. I don't know if all teachers are taught CPR. I don't know if that's something they have to have or whatever.
No school system I've talked to requires, and there may be some out there, but the ones that I've talked to, no. There's a few that have it. Like maybe your PE instructors.
Yeah. So what if that kid that you have in class has a heart defect from birth and falls over in cardiac arrest in your classroom? Yep. You just sit there and watch till the ambulance gets there?
Yeah, you're on a field trip.
Yeah.
You're a bus driver again. You're driving down the road. Yeah. When the kids start screaming, "Hey, something's wrong with Johnny" in the back, he's back there,
Yeah. And you know what? Knowing where you're at geographically, talking about that. If something happens, you got to know where you're at. And that's something that it's weird, but I guess being a profession for so long, it makes sense to me. But like when I ride down the road, especially like a long highway or parkway or interstate, like I'll mentally take notes on what I see or the mile marker that I'm at.
Yeah.
Like, shoot, not necessarily like if I have an accident, I'll be able to tell, but like what if I roll up on one that's bad? I don't have a clue where I'm at.
Right.
But the last mile marker I seen was, so-and-so mile marker.
Yeah.
Same thing we just experienced this last night on duty. A guy crashed his car, was knocked unconscious, and when he come to, he called 911. He was trapped. Didn't know where he was. We were all over Barron County looking for this guy.
Oh,
luckily, we found him.
Yeah.
But, that's...
Yeah. Were they able to ping his phone?
Yeah, roughly. Like it was...
Yeah.
So basically where his phone was pinging and where he kind of remembered the last thing he saw was pretty good ways away.
Really?
Yeah. So...
Wow.
Yeah, so, not necessarily, like I said... If you have an accident, if you have a head injury, it's probably difficult to remember things. It'd be just almost impossible to be able to give your exact location. But somebody just driving down the road and find something. Yeah. Find a car off the side of the road with somebody unconscious in it or whatever. You got to know what to tell 911 when you call them.
Yep. That's part of preparedness is knowing where you're at, knowing what you got. Even when we're going to do a whole series on setting up your vehicle, what you need in your vehicle for emergency kits and supplies and things like that, But it's so important that no matter what profession you're in, period, you could be a clerk in a office building somewhere. But what's in your toolbox if something happened? Where's your defibrillator?
Yeah.
Where's your first aid kit? Where's the things that you have? Where's your communication? How are you going to get communication to where you need to go? Yeah. That is key. So many people, we always say, "Oh, I'll wait for the first responders to get here," but we always say, "You are the first responder." Yeah. And to our first responders, quote unquote, what's in that toolbox?
Yeah. And look at what happened Christmas Day with the explosion.
Oh my gosh, man.
We've been talking about ham radios forever.
Yeah.
But
and then get a box of 6 of them sitting over there.
But so this explosion happened in Nashville, which is roughly 90 to 100 miles away from where I live. Yeah. And our cell phones were down.
Yep.
Because it happened right next to an AT&T store.
I was in Lexington, Kentucky.
To an AT&T like switch station, basically is what it was. And I had no cell phone service.
Yeah. For 24 hours.
Yeah, roughly 24 hours. Yeah. But think about as an officer, as a paramedic or a fireman in any of those areas, if you were a paramedic in Nashville or all the way up into Bowling Green, you had no radio or no cell phone communications. Right.
I've got FirstNet through AT&T.
I do too.
And it was knocked out. Yeah. I was still knocked out.
CAD systems were down at 911, so all the computer assisted documentation at the 911 centers, they were all down and around that region. So 911 phones were down. There was news agencies in Nashville putting out secondary numbers to call to, if you needed to call an ambulance or a police officer or whatever. Yeah. So I think something needs to be talked about. We can talk about it on another podcast, but like a PACE plan.
Yeah.
For communications.
Yep.
I always have to look it up, but primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. So basically, you've got 4 methods of communication. Yep. Our primary is cell phones, right? Your alternate would be Wi-Fi communications,
Right, yeah.
And your emergency could be ham radios,
Right.
Or whatever, or your contingency could be ham radios. Emergency would be like a runner.
Right, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if all that stuff was down, so basically cell phones go down, we go to our alternate.
Yep.
The alternate goes down, you know, basically step down.
Yeah.
But that's part of being prepared.
Exactly.
You know, and these agencies that were in that region that were affected, did they have a PACE plan set up?
Right. And we'll have all of our ham stuff done and set up with the system here hopefully here next few weeks. You know.
Yeah, but that is part of being prepared and having it.
It makes you realize, you know what I'm saying, when you experience that again, exactly what we're talking about until you're there and you experience that, it's like, I can't communicate with my family.
Yeah.
I can't communicate with my team. You know, we're that vulnerable. You know what I'm saying?
When you're trying to prepare, you know, to be whether, you know, a prepper or whatever, quote unquote prepper,
right.
Your imagination is your best friend. You know, to think up an explosion that would rock a region, you know, shut a region down,
right.
Communication wise.
Yeah,
it's hard to imagine.
It is. I've had people messaging me today being like, "Yeah, you're right on this ham stuff." Like
that day, bro. That's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah.
Like, oh crap, I can't communicate with nobody.
We got to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You need to. And it's not hard to get. You just gotta do it.
And not only know what's in your toolbox, but know what you need in your toolbox.
Right. Yeah. And nobody's immune to it. I don't care what your job is, even if it's just your home and your family.
Yeah.
How do you protect your home? How do you defend your home? How do you prepare to set your family up in that situation?
Yeah.
What's in your toolbox at home? Can you stop a bleed? Can you do CPR? Can you give basic first aid? What do you do if you have an allergic reaction that happens to somebody? Like, how do you communicate out if you don't have cell phone signals? How do you get help to your home? You know, like we've never really thought about that. You know what I'm saying? Like you're at your house, you're not tactical, you're not first responder, you're not EMS, you're not fire, you're not all this stuff. You're just an average citizen working your daily job, and you come home and a bomb goes off at the AT&T building, communications are down, all of a sudden you have an emergency in your house.
Yeah. Or your kids traveling during this, you know.
How do I call 911 to come to my house?
Yeah.
I don't have a landline phone. I've just got AT&T.
Prime example that
you
are the
stick
first
your head out your
responder.
door and scream.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you get them there? It's like critical. You know what I'm saying? You have to know. You have to prepare for these situations.
Yeah.
So.
And again, you don't want to learn this stuff in the moment.
Right. And maybe a twisted T might be your tool. It might be in your toolbox.
Buddy, that dude.
Oh, dude. If you all are listening to this,
out of his toolbox.
If you're listening to this or watching this and you have not seen this, please, it's all over YouTube. They got all kinds of like music remixes and stuff now. Yeah, it is so funny. So this crackhead, that's exactly what it was, dude.
Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, he was this little crackhead dude comes up to this black guy and he starts talking smack. He's talking to the cashier, I think, first. Starts talking smack to this black guy. Starts spitting out these racial slurs. And this, I'll give it to that black guy, dude. He was trying to stay calm and cool, and he just kept, he would sing, he'd grab his twisted T and he'd set it there, and he'd kind of put his head down, look back up, and then that guy turned on him and said something, dude. He's like, what are you going to do? Smack me with it? Smack me. I'm going to walk at you. I'm going to smack. Dude, all of a sudden you heard crack. And dude, he took that twisted T upside his head and that dude went down. That is the funniest thing. But that's what he had in his toolbox, man. And that's what he used.
He knew how to use it.
Boy, he did, didn't he? So anyway, we're not sponsored by Twisted Tea, but we could be.
Yeah, I'd love to be.
No, that's all you got to do is reach out. We had to put it here just so y'all got to watch that. It's a hilarious video. So that was in his toolbox, and he knew how to use it.
Yeah. So basically, just be prepared. Know what's in your toolbox. Know how to use it.
Yeah. Prepare so you can respond.
Somebody's life is going to depend on it. It could be yours.
Exactly. That's what
could be your family.
Say. You become that first responder. You got to be able to respond under stress.
Yep.
No ifs, ands, buts about it. And this will lead us to more podcasts, which we're going to do, and even videos that aren't really just audio podcasts, but we're going to show you, like we said, how to set up your vehicle. We're going to show you some different techniques and things to do so you can become more prepared and have what you need on your person. So, cool deal, man. Anything else?
That's all on my rant.
All right. Well, it was a good rant. It's a good podcast.
Good.
So I like it. What's in your toolbox? Are you ready to use it?
Yep.
All right, guys. Check us out on the next podcast. We're going to keep this stuff going. If you got any questions for us, you got any topics that you would like to have addressed or discussed or questions, just please shout out to us and let us know. You can send us a message on our social media. You can email
YouTube
us
comments.
YouTube comments. We got info@fivestoneusa.com is the email you can send over to us. And we're out there, and we're getting engaged with you guys. We'd love to have your feedback and input.
Yep.
So we can get it going. Our podcasts are on Apple. They're on Stitcher. They're on Spotify.
Everything.
iHeartRadio, Amazon, all of them. And we try to put as many of these we can on video, so they're on YouTube. So if you want to sit back and watch them, with your buddies, your family, whatever, you're welcome to do that too. So anyway, thank you guys for your support, and we'll catch you on the next show. Got it?
Yep.
This has been a production of Five Stone. I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time to check out our podcast and videocast today. You can check us out online at fivestoneusa.com. That's the number 5, fivestoneusa.com. We are also on all the social media platforms. Our podcasts are now live. Videocasts are on YouTube, and our audio podcasts are on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, all the major podcast platforms. Thank you guys again. We cannot thank you much for all your support and all that you do for us. Remember, prepare, respond, and serve, because someday you might be that first responder.